All week long you've waited, and now it's time for Kickoff. Fighting Chance Kickoff. Starts and sits, injuries, weather, and the latest news. No hot takes, no BS, just the information you need to crush your competition. It's Fighting Chance Kickoff with Kevin Tompkins and Gary Haddow.
Now, if that doesn't make you want to run through a wall, I don't know what does.
I can't believe we're finally here.
Gary, we're in friggin' week one.
It's week one.
Woo! Oh my God, I did not bring out the noisemakers, but it is well worth it because it is week one. We are here. You've seen us on Fighting Chance Live, and now we get to invade your personal space for Fighting Chance Kickoff in the mornings. You can't get rid of us.
Oh, it's amazing. I can't believe that we're doing this. I'm so happy that we got here. And man, week one is upon us. It's the craziest week one for anybody that thought, hey, buddy, my
kids are out.
Biggest Niners fan came. He has his hair up.
Awesome.
Okay, buddy.
He has more hair than I do.
He has a lot of hair. So we have to put it up so that he can see the football games.
That is awesome. Well, thank you for checking us out here. We'll be here every Sunday going through injuries, matchups, your start and sit questions, anything you have. We'll go through weather reports too. So, keep it tuned here. And like I said, we're both from fightingchancefantasy.com. Lots of stuff there to help you get ready for week 1 too. So let's go into some of the major stuff for today and tomorrow as far as injuries. So we've gotten, a lot of big names that are going to be out. Probably the most major being Miles Sanders.
Yeah, it's insane. I feel like before Ewan just came in, I was going to say, it's 2020. We should have expected this, right? Not only is it 2020 and it's a crazy year, but now we have the craziest week one with all these injuries. One thing just for anybody that's kind of freaking out, thinking that they did their drafts wrong or something, this is bound to happen. There were 14 padded practices before the games actually got here. Week one got here. That is not a lot of time to get your body into game shape. And so you have a lot of guys that are going to be pushing extra hard. They're going to get these soft tissue injuries. It'll work itself out. It's going to be a wonky first month. But like Kevin said, we'll kind of jump in with Miles Sanders. He had a low-grade hamstring pull, and it seemed to go here and there. We thought that he might be there, but obviously yesterday, so there's Friday practice reports, and then on Saturday it actually came out that Miles Sanders wasn't going to fly with the team, which kind of threw everyone into a tailspin yesterday. So who's your biggest riser with Sanders going to be out? Because I know you're a big Miles Sanders guy.
Yeah. But I like Boston Scott because he's not going to get the full workload of Miles Sanders. I don't see him, with 15 to 18 carries, but I do see him with close to that amount of touches because he is a factor in the receiving game. And with all of the injuries in the Eagles, receiving core, Dallas Goedert has a fractured thumb. I think Boston Scott's going to factor in. I think he definitely has a RB2 floor today. So I am not hesitating putting him in lineups where I have the room to. I'm not going to shoehorn him in, over, some other RB2 targets. And we'll go through those, as we get to start and sits, stuff like that. But I think he's definitely usable today, especially in PPR.
Completely agree. I think that Corey Clement is worth picking up if you happen to just have a bottom of the roster spot. We don't know what's going to happen with Sanders. Corey Clement is someone that the team always likes. They like him in and going out and, getting some catches and stuff. So some targets there. Definitely probably not someone you're starting, but Boston Scott, I think we'll see all over and probably started in almost every league across the board, probably. Although it is week one, you drafted your guys for a reason. So.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing too, because week one is always tough, especially when you have those injuries to ask, should I start this guy? Because pretty much when you draft your team, you have your lineup set, especially week one. Week two is when you really start to get, volatility. But it's a different year. It's 2020. It's a COVID year, Gary. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, it turns out there's this little thing going on.
Yeah, something like a pandemic, masks. I don't know. Who knows?
So what other injuries we got here? For anybody that's been following the Jaguars backfield, feel like I said that one. Weird. Jaguars. Anyway, the Jags backfield. So not only is Raquel Armstead back on the COVID list, but then it looked like it was going to be either Divina Zigbo or James Robinson. Well, Divina Zigbo is now out with a hamstring. So he's on IR. For anybody that doesn't know, in this year, if you go on the short-term IR, that means 3 weeks, not the normal 6-week pup that you might hear referred to. So Zigbo is out for 3 weeks. There's a few other guys on this list. Really what this means is Chris Thompson. He's going to be the go-to in terms of any passing situation. We're not too sure how much more he's going to get beyond that because there is James Robinson, but he's an undrafted free agent. And undrafted free agent running backs have a pretty small chance to make rosters other than Philip Lindsay last year. But here we are, James Robinson. He's getting a lot of hype from the coach. So we'll see. I still would prefer Thompson. That's someone I will play. Robinson, I would rather wait and see, but I will admit I am starting him in a dynasty league where I have no other options. So
yeah, it's tough with Robinson because, like I said, you pretty much have your lineup set for week 1, and then here comes this undrafted free agent out of Illinois State. But, it's a wait and see thing. The only thing I'm thinking about is how many positive game scripts is he really going to be in? Yeah. And then we know, Chris Thompson is going to be there on passing downs too. So that kind of caps, anything from Robinson. But, he hasn't played a game in the NFL. So we'll see how they use him. But, right now I just have him on a kind of a watch list. I think I have him ranked RB 48 this week in my rankings. If you go on fightingchancefantasy.com, you can check those out. Same with Fantasy Pros. You can find me on there and look up my rankings. So, I have him just kind of, I'm not playing him in any league that I'm in, but certainly someone to watch for. He's probably the most picked up guy this week outside of, anybody that didn't have, that had Mike Evans, and we'll go right into him. So Mike Evans, this is a curious tale here because he was doubtful, I believe, starting Friday, moved his way up to questionable. Now, Rappaport says that he's going to play, but probably limited. But I'm not touching him. I'm not going to touch him. Yeah. This screams decoy to me.
Even if he does play, he's going to be on a snap count. That's pretty clear. I agree with you. I think that they put him on the field just to try and draw Lattimore maybe towards him. Right. And then PJ Williams can cover Chris Godwin. If the Saints should still just put PJ Williams on Evans, let him kind of re-injure himself type thing by trying to go for it. Who knows? So obviously you're starting Chris Godwin. Are you going to start Scotty Miller, who is now the de facto wide receiver 3? If Evans is out, he's the wide receiver 2.
Probably not, honestly, because that's going to be the recurring theme today, especially with week 1. Is you have your guys that more than likely you should have 3 or 4 guys that you'd have ticketed to start or can start in case something happens. So Miller's an ad, not a start, at least right here. Couldn't be sneaky in DFS, but I don't think I'm even playing him there. Just the uncertainty with Godwin. I'd almost, if you give me a choice between the other pass catchers in that offense, I'd probably take OJ Howard over Scott Miller.
Yeah, I completely agree. So there's 2 more big names, and then there's some smaller ones. But so as of right now, Kenny Golladay is downgraded to doubtful. I don't think he's going to play, which really sucks. Kenny Golladay is like plant my flag guy. I absolutely love him this year. Have him all over the place. So have had to pivot. It does mean that Marvin Jones, who already had pretty good stock, is even higher. Hawkinson is somebody that I guess the Bears aren't the greatest against the tight end. So we'll see if TJ Hawkinson, the Detroit Lions tight end, can show up. Is there anyone else on the Lions offense, obviously besides Stafford, that you think is worth consideration?
Consideration, as far as that goes, I actually like Quintus Cephas a bit here as far as a speculative ad. I believe Amendola is also on the injured list too. Yeah. So he would be a guy I would think about too. But I think Cephas could work out at least a role and get snaps. And if you're on the field, something can happen. So he could be a guy that maybe we're looking to pick up week 2. That could be a guy you might want to pick up before kickoff today. Yeah. in case something happens, and it's an easy guy you can churn if nothing comes of it. But he's a guy that they drafted that they, certainly like, and there's not much behind Galladay and Jones. So, it's certainly worth the speculative ad, and then keep that in your back pocket in case something happens. If he, shows up on the stat sheet, great. You got somebody else that you can, see what happens. Cause Galladay with those hamstring injuries, the soft tissue injuries are very tough to navigate, for multiple weeks. So, we'll see what happens with that. And then the other, the real big name, is for Monday would be Cortland Sutton. And now we haven't gotten a lot of, news on that other than the, fantastic news blurb from Vic Fangio about if he can do 10 jumping jacks, he'll get in the lineup, which a lot of doctors that I know, I don't think they've heard of that one.
Yeah, that's nuts. Last I heard it was game time to touching him. It's the Monday night game, the early one. I'm going to do everything I can to pivot away from that. If you really want to go after Sutton, it's not the early game. Sorry, it's the late game. So you don't really have another option. You're pretty much pivoting to like Adam Humphries or
Tim Patrick
or like KJ Hamler that are just like, no, I have no interest there. So take him out of your lineup. Just, it sucks. You're going to be out Evans and Galladay and Sutton week 1. But just since we're talking, so the next guy, Mike Williams. So he's the kind of deep threat for the Los Angeles Chargers. He has an AC, a shoulder sprain pretty much. And we thought that he was just going to be out. Then he was doubtful. And now all of a sudden, Schefter is saying that he's out. And Ian Rappaport is saying he's likely to play. Not touching that no matter what either. Yeah. So if you're considering, like there's a question here in the chat of Sterling Shepard or Justin Jefferson, I'm going with Sterling Shepard. More defined role in the offense. Justin Jefferson's going to be, a Hail Mary just to see what could happen in week 1. But, I don't think Justin Jefferson's the wide receiver 2 yet. So definitely Sterling Shepard. He's going to at least probably have to be playing in a catch-up game as the Steelers are like the offense du jour this week. They're just going to crush the Giants.
Yeah, I like Shepard as the pseudo number 1 there, certainly over Justin Jefferson. We don't know what his role is going to be because, BC Johnson came out of camp looking pretty good. So, there's quite a few guys outside of Thielen that could get some run. Jefferson was a little bit slow in camp to picking up the offense. So we'll see what happens with that. But, give me the certainty at least of Shepard that he should play. He doesn't have a concussion yet, but so I'm looking at a bunch of guys right now that are off the radar a bit. Alshon Jeffrey is out with a foot injury. Denzel Mims has a hamstring. Darrington Evans, the backup for Derrick Henry in Tennessee, was ruled out yesterday with a hamstring. Notice the common thread here. Like I said, the soft tissue injuries with COVID and with the abbreviated training camp. That's like one of the main takeaways is soft tissue injuries, hamstrings, because that's mainly what we're seeing with a lot of these guys, that are on this injury list here. Yeah. And then another guy who was put on IR was Deebo Samuel, who, I think that's a good move by San Francisco, making sure that when he's back, he is healthy. And we know he had a timetable when he originally hurt his foot with that Jones fracture, but it's keep him out until week 4, week 5, and he should be good to go. You don't want to rush those because the re-injury rate is a real thing with those Jones fractures. So I think it was a very, very good move by the medical staff there in Santa Clara.
Yeah, and so along those lines, Deebo is out. Then their rookie first-round wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk, he had a hamstring pull. It looks like he's going to play. He's at least questionable. He's not doubtful. I'm a little nervous that they're going to maybe hold him back a little bit, maybe snap count type thing, just because he is a rookie. And with the hamstring, they got a long season to go. And so I really think Kendrick Bourne is probably one of the biggest beneficiaries as the wide receivers. I think Jerick McKinnon if you have him or if he's available. I think Jerick McKinnon's going to have a really big week. They're going to finally get to use him the way they wanted to. For anybody who doesn't remember, Jerick McKinnon signed a massive contract 3 years ago, then tore his ACL twice, pretty much at the same time of the year, back-to-back seasons. But now he's back, and everybody says he looks amazing. And the dude is a spark freak. Spark being just his athleticism. He is just way up there. So in a deep league, maybe Trent Taylor. And as I tweeted earlier and got shot down, I wouldn't be putting Jordan Reed in my lineups. But I genuinely believe we're going to be surprised by Jordan Reed. He might not stay healthy the whole season, but when he's in, there used to be Rule 85 or 86, whatever it was. And now it's not quite the same. But I think Jordan Reed's going to make a big difference for this offense. So, hey, Arizona absolutely sucks against tight ends, or at least they did last year. So we'll see what happens. But George Kittle, I mean, he's got to be the number one tight end now, right? Going into the week with all of these other injuries. It's insane. So can't wait to see what they do.
Absolutely. And then one other injury, at least a questionable tag, is Golden Tate in the late game too. I would, being that it's the late game, there isn't really a pivot to get to outside of like maybe a James Washington. But that's the early game, so you still have guys like Adam Humphries. But I would really try to just find somebody to put in now, before kickoff for Golden Tate, and that's going to just close up a little bit of the target distribution. You still got a bunch of guys there, but Daniel Jones, I want him to play with all five of those guys, man.
Yeah, I completely. It's crazy that it's still not happened. I mean, he went the entire season without it, and here we are. But they'll get their chance. I'd rather him have all five guys, not against the Steelers. Although maybe it's a good matchup to see what they're truly made of. But we'll see. It definitely even just gives a little extra tick up for Sterling Shepard, for Evan Ingram. Obviously, you're starting Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
But man, I'm curious to see what Darius Slayton can do. He had an up and down season last year, but
right. So I got a question in the chat here. If the Cards and Niners game gets canceled, what should I do with Murray, Hopkins, Kittle? I would probably sit them. I mean, I certainly hope you have options, in your lineup. If you have a second quarterback, tight end, those are usually onesie positions where you're carrying one. But I can understand if you're carrying two. Hopefully your commissioner added, bench spots, for this. That's why I tried to keep two quarterbacks, potentially three, if the roster sizes are big enough. Same with tight end, try to carry at least two, and then should have a bunch of receivers. But yeah, I'm definitely monitoring the air effect there. Because certainly Santa Clara has been better with the air quality than San Francisco, so that might be a feather in their cap. But I would still just keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on the late games too, because that's going to be one of the biggest stories heading into the 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock games. So
I do not expect this game to be canceled. I don't think anybody expects it to be canceled. There is just the possibility. And
I feel like if it was going to be canceled, it would have already been canceled.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing. It's not like they can just move it. They could postpone it, like, so be it. But
yeah, I
mean, it would be, we went through this a few years ago. Like, I know some of the guys in the chat right now are all in the Bay Area. They live there. And we went through this same thing with the Raiders. Their game was almost postponed. And it takes a lot to really get there. Imagine how much the NFL went through to get week 1 to even happen. They're going to do everything in their damn power to make sure that it does go off and all the games happen. So we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with that, we'll look at look at a guy that is in now, and that's going to be David Montgomery, who we were worried about his groin injury, and now he by all accounts should play. I don't think it knocks Cohen down too much, but it's going to certainly affect how much he's on the field. But Trubisky gets another my 13th ranked quarterback for this week, Mitchell Trubisky, who I am, by the way, tied for the highest on in the ECR for Mitch Trubisky. But yeah, I don't mind putting Montgomery in as my two, because they just the Lions they lost Ashawn Robinson and Snacks Harrison, so that middle is going to be pretty vulnerable. So I don't mind him as a play this week as a low end RB2, possibly a flex play. Cohen I still like. I've got him in a few lineups, but I'm actually don't mind I want to check out that Bear. I want to see how they're gonna, if they're gonna use Cohen a little more. I want to see Stafford air it out.
Yeah.
I might put that game on my second TV and because I got the Packers game. It's gonna be an all NFC North TV lineup in my downstairs today.
I think I have Montgomery more as like an RB3. If I can avoid starting him, I will, just because you never know what's going to happen, or especially if he tries to go hard and pulls it. Obviously the coaches know what they're doing, but it is a division game, and division games, they mean a heck of a lot more to your actual total season schedule and all that wins and losses then. So I'm hesitant to put him in. I actually almost said I think of it more as an RB4 type thing. If I can get 3 more ahead of him, I would. If I have a wide receiver that I'm going to trust more, it just sucks because the matchup is so nice. Like you said, I think it probably gives Trubisky even more of a bump. I can't put him at QB 13 like you can, but it definitely at least gets me closer to a startable back, high end QB 2 for the week.
And I got one more question here regarding Miles Sanders. With Miles Sanders in midseason form already, should I try and package him to get a wide receiver 2 or RB2? I'd probably hold off on that because you really, it's pennies on the dollar kind of thing. I just don't know if you're going to get, proper value for him just selling him off right now. But, hopefully you get some, encouraging work and practice this week regarding his health, and hopefully he can get out there and maybe regain some of that value. I mean, if he plays and he even shows anything, I would maybe entertain trading him. What do you think, Gary?
I wouldn't take anything less than a wide receiver 2 and RB2. No matter what anyone says, there is somebody in your leagues that still looks at Miles Sanders and goes, whatever, this is all these hamstrings are flaring up right now. That doesn't mean that he's going to be injured all season, and they will pay up for him. I'm probably going to hold him, but as I kind of always say, I'm injury agnostic. I just assume that injuries are going to go away. It's a long season, even if it's 13 weeks just to get into playoffs. Hopefully you drafted well enough that you can have Miles Sanders out and you can have someone fill in even for a couple weeks, and we'll just kind of see. No one knows what it's going to be like watching all these games because we could have defenses that are just flat-footed. They haven't been able to play preseason games. They haven't been able to have more than 14 padded practices. Like, those things make a difference. Offenses tend to play a little bit better in those situations. And so I'm going to hold on to my studs for the time being. If somebody comes to you with something you can't refuse, then hey, take it. But don't sell for pennies on the dollar right now. It's way too early in the season.
And I got one more from our good friend Leo Grandia here from fightingchancefantasy.com. Good morning, Leo. Thank you so much for the kind words, my friend. Need one for PPR: Devin Singletary, David Montgomery, James Robinson, Preston Williams.
Man, this is a tough one. They all have pretty tough matchups. I actually think I'm going to go with David Montgomery in this just because of the floor that he has. Singletary, I think my own biases are coming in here because I'm hoping that Zach Moss does well. I think Singletary will have an okay game. Robinson, I'm probably just always going to be a wait and see since he really just got put into that role, and who knows what's going to happen against the Colts. I don't really know what to expect from that game. Normally, I would say Preston Williams. He looks like he could become the wide receiver 1 there, much to the chagrin of Devontae Parker fans. But going against New England, I'm a little bit hesitant. This is his first game back from his ACL tear. So I would say it's between Monty and Preston Williams just because of their upside. Looks like Kevin Chubb in the chat saying, Preston, where are you at on this?
It's funny because I've been out on him for a while. I think I might be leaning toward Devin Singletary here. Honestly, just, with Monty, that groin injury, that's tough, but I'm still, they're both RB2s for me. Preston Williams, I gave some consideration, but I'm going to look at game script with Buffalo and the Jets. And I think, being a low score, I still think that there's going to be work for Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. So, even though it is, I think still Devin Singletary will get a couple catches here and there. Montgomery's not really factoring in the pass game that much. I think Chicago will be passing a little bit more than they're used to. So I don't know if Montgomery's going to get the volume he's been accustomed to, at least in his rookie season. I'm going to take a shot in the dark. I'm going to go Devin Singletary here among these guys. But, him and Montgomery are pretty close for me. James Robinson, like we discussed, I'm wait and see on him. And Preston Williams is kind of a wait and see because that is a tough matchup, in Foxborough.
Yeah, and I think if Kevin's going to have Singletary as an RB2, then just go with that because I have already said I have Montgomery as an RB3. Singletary and Montgomery are pretty close to for me. So if you want to go with that.
So we have a couple more guys who should play here, and we'll just go through them pretty quickly here. Darrell Henderson should play on tonight. That's tonight's game with a hamstring. Still not touching that backfield. I'm not even starting Cam Akers. I don't think anybody really should be starting any of those guys unless you're in a pinch. I'm in wait and see mode on that offense. I want to see how that split shakes out.
Completely agree. It's just not something I'm touching whatsoever.
Yep. Devontae Parker should play today. He has had success against Stephon Gilmore, so that's pretty much that's a tough week one there for him to come through a hamstring and then to see Stephon Gilmore, who by all accounts should have won Defensive Player of the Year last year. So I'm gonna fade him, but with that could open stuff up for Preston Williams. We've seen the stats on Preston Williams out targeting Devontae Parker when both were on the field at the beginning of last year. So Devontae Parker, are you fading him? Or are you not putting him in any lineups that you have him in?
Yeah, I'm not going to put him in. I think that this benefits Gesicki the most, and then Breida probably the second most. I think Howard had his role. Preston, I want him to do well. I don't know what to expect. So at least I know that Gesicki is going to be a lot of slot action. He's probably going to be for a tight end. He's going to probably get a lot of good amount of targets, chance for a touchdown. And then Breida, I don't know. Breida and Howard confuse the heck out of me, but I'm just going to go on the assumption that the Dolphins are going to be down and that they're going to need Breida more than they're going to need Howard. That's purely just thinking what the game script's going to look like, despite the fact that I like the Dolphins to cover the spread.
Right. Absolutely. And then a couple more guys too. DeAndre Swift, he had a hip injury, was limited for early in the week, this past week. He's not on the injury report, but he's still that Lions run game, with Adrian Peterson getting added to it now. You got Kerryon Johnson, Swift. That's pretty muddy. I don't think I'm touching that one either. Yeah,
and I think this is one of the backfields a lot of people want to see what happens, but ultimately there's just nothing that you can do right now. You can't start him. I'm hoping that we get a little bit of clarity out of this, but it's not as if Swift has been running drills with the team. Like he's been out. So if anything, this is going to be carry on for the time being. We sprinkled in with some Adrian Peterson.
Yep. And then one more guy here, Jalen Reagor, who we thought with his partially torn labrum was going to be probably on the shelf for a few weeks. They're saying he should play. Now, I don't think he's going to get a full complement. I think he's going to be pretty limited. I don't think he's going to get a full complement of snaps. So I think Greg Ward is still in play here, as a slot guy. Certainly Deshaun Jackson, I think, is going to just, he's healthy. He's pretty much all they have right now outside of Ertz. So I think it's a Deshaun Jackson smash game for me.
Completely agree. I'm really excited to see what Reagor can do, even just the videos that I've seen of him in camp and whatnot. Dude, looks like he's going to be a stud. But this is a D-Jax game all the way. I'm starting him everywhere that I can. And if Reagor does something, it's just going to be brownie points. We already are really excited about him. If anything, just let him heal up. I think we're all kind of shocked that he's going to play. I couldn't believe it. I thought he was going to be out for 3 weeks. So let's see what happens. And, I'm excited for Ertz and Deshaun Jackson. I'm actually nervous about Carson Wentz in this game. It's going to be an interesting game. Like everybody thinks that the Washington football team are going to just roll over, but they have a strong front seven. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going against a banged up Philadelphia offensive line. And so you're going to get a lot of dump offs to Ertz. And in the middle of that, you're going to get chunk throws to Deshaun Jackson.
And another thing too, that for me, that leads to that narrowing of the target distribution in Philly. Dallas Goedert's fractured thumb, who he's going to play through it, but I think he's going to be blocking a lot more than people realize today, especially with a depleted offensive line that they already have, losing Brandon Brooks, having to re-sign Jason Peters and move him into guard. That front line for Washington is going to be trouble. Goddard's a fantastic blocker. We talked about it on Fighting Chance Live numerous times. So I think he's going to be blocking a lot more. He's going to be staying in. I think it's going to be an Ertz to Sean Jackson game with some Boston Scott sprinkled in, and then some Greg Ward too in the middle. So that's where I think the targets lie in Philly, at least for today. I think that fractured thumb is really going to, just keep Goddard in there to block. They're going to need, all the help they can get with Chase Young and, Jonathan Allen and all those guys. It's really surprising, but they've had all those high picks. So it shouldn't be surprising that they've amassed all that talent. It's like what San Francisco did, amassing their defensive line, and now look at them.
Hey, Kevin, so I got a question for you, asking for a friend. In a full PPR league with points for first downs, would you rather have Zach Moss or Greg Ward as your flex 2?
Flex 2.
Yeah. So we'll just say flex.
Yeah, I'm probably going to lean to Zach Moss still. I think he's going to be very involved. As far as point for first down, I don't think both are bad options per se. I just think there's much more of a ceiling for Moss. But if you go with Greg Ward, the only thing that is a little concerning with Greg Ward is just how down in the pecking order he is. Probably the third or fourth option in Philly. But Zach Moss, I think it's gonna be more of a split with Singletary. I think both are gonna be good in a good game script for Buffalo. Granted it's gonna be low scoring, but I think both are gonna find their way. I like Zach Moss there over Greg Ward. And then we'll go back to the Washington football team for 1 second. If I'm going to assume that's Gibson does well this week, would he be a sell high candidate? Yeah, absolutely. Get what you can for him early. Don't.
There's more nuance to it than that, though.
Yeah. I mean,
he could be awesome. So, yes, only take something that is a high offer because it looks like this backfield is completely open for the taking. If you've listened to late round quarterback JJ Zacharyson, his way of identifying breakout candidates, especially at the running back position, is a murky backfield, and all of a sudden someone just emerges. And that's exactly what we have here. JD McKissick is supposedly the starter. There's Peyton Barber, and then there's also Gibson. And Gibson seems like he's going to have the most well-rounded, can kind of do everything. And he's like a 99% athlete. All those things have been said nonstop. So if he does well here, it would take something pretty strong to make me move him. I'm open to moving him, and I would put it out to your league. Hey, Gibson on the block, and just try and get a bidding war going and get as much as you can, because ultimately it is the Washington football team, and their offense is going to be limited, we expect.
Mr. Limited.
I got a quick update here. Adam Schefter is reporting that the Niners game is the Niners-Cardinals is expected to go. It's staying at its regularly scheduled time. However, there is concern that Tevin Coleman might not play. So for anybody that doesn't know, Tevin Coleman has sickle cell trait. And so they're worried that the smoke in the air is going to negatively affect him. If he plays, again, I was high on McKinnon. I am sky high on McKinnon. I also think if he doesn't play, like Mostert, also, if for some reason you were in a spot where he was your RB3-4 and you weren't sure, I'm definitely playing Mostert. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not the biggest Coleman fan, despite being a Niners homer, and I don't know. I like the offense when he's not in it, regardless of what anyone else wants to tell me.
I like it. So I'm right now. I am in the weather reports right now, so we can just dig through those real quick. So we'll look at the 1:00 slate here. So Seahawks at Falcons at Atlanta. It's a dome stadium. Don't have to worry about that as far as weather. Cleveland at Baltimore in M&T Bank Stadium. 74 degrees, zero chance of precipitation. Should be a beautiful day for football.
Rather than going through all of them, which are the ones that we need to be concerned about? Let's just do that.
Yeah, let's do that. So, really only the California games, at least for the air quality there. I'm taking a look here. There might be a little bit of rain in Buffalo today.
And I saw some wind.
Yep, a little bit of wind here, a little bit of rain.
For wind, usually you're looking for anything over 15 miles an hour, just so anyone knows. It doesn't necessarily drastically change the game, but over 15, it could start to impact the passing game. But ultimately, like, we don't expect one of these teams to be passing much, and that's the Bills, because we expect them to dominate the Jets, and they're just going to try and run the clock out. So if anything, this actually helps the Bills defense, because if Darnold has to throw into the wind, that's going to just cause potentially more turnovers and stuff. So
and really the only other matchup, because everything else is pretty much sunny and 70s, is Indianapolis at Jacksonville. With rain, it's going to be hotter, but there's going to be some wind too. So we'll see how that goes, but that could be something to take a look for as far as kickers. I mean, I don't know how many of you are really rostering Josh Lambo or Rodrigo Blankenship, but that could be something to consider as well if you do happen to roster those. If you're in a deeper league, if you're rostering 2 kickers, don't simply recommend it, but hey, it could happen. Especially, I get it. Every league is different. So, other than that, that's really the only weather that, that we have to worry about. So that's great. That's fantastic. So let's
jump into some questions. You got a ton of questions from all of our listeners, from people on Twitter, Facebook, all over the place. If you have questions in the future, hit up Kevin and I on Facebook or on Twitter. We're always around. And also check out our Wednesday show.
Yep, absolutely. Fighting Chance Live. We're here every Wednesday as well. And then just one more thing, and I will try to chime in with the inactives as they come in, because it's about that time too. So let's get into some questions, because we got a bunch of them. Again, thank you so much for those, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Like I said, my Twitter handle is at KTompkinsII. Gary's is at Gary Hadow #1. Come at us anytime, even after the show. I'll be online to answer anything you guys have. Hit the DMs, they're always open. First question. This is going to be it's going to be all PPR unless they say so. Marlon Mack or Mark Ingram?
Mark Ingram, not even close. Mark Ingram to me is a top 15 back. So I have no issue starting him. Luckily, I happen to be in where I have Ingram, I have some guys above him that I don't need to, but there should be no question about starting him. Whereas with Mac, everybody doesn't know who's going to get the touchdowns, who's going to get the primo carries. So if I can, I'm going to fade Mac. If I have to put Mac in, I'm also comfortable with that as a RB3 flex type thing.
Yeah, and Mac was him and Taylor were combined. Starts, my running back starts for this week too. So I definitely like Mac especially in a positive game script. They should get out to a lead and just bowl over Jacksonville. I don't think that's going to be, too much of a game. At least in the first half, it could be just garbage time for Jacksonville. But I like Ingram too, but I do like Mac as a play, especially if you're, maybe you're a Miles Sanders owner who drafted Mac in the 7th, 8th, 9th round and just happen to have him. He's certainly worth a start. If you're going to start him in any week, you can start him this week. Yeah. And then we'll stay with, there's one Colts running back here. The other guy, Jonathan Taylor or James White, PPR.
Oh, man. I'm probably going to go with White just because I feel a little comfortable with the floor. I just hear so many concerning stats. Obviously, Cam had CMC and whatnot, but I guess Cam's accuracy in short throws is pretty terrible. And so I'm concerned about that with White. But also, Sony Michel, to me, is almost just a guy at this point. He's had his injuries. Damian Harris is on IR, so it's J.J. Taylor behind him, who's even smaller than White is, pretty much. I like White. I actually like both of these guys. and Jonathan Taylor is just fun just to see what happens. But I think everybody wants to play with their new shiny toy right when they get it, rather than wait and see what happens. But ultimately, the Colts should be beating the Jags pretty handedly and see if they give Jonathan Taylor a lot of run. I know Frank Wright came out and even said, Mac is going to be our first half guy, and Jonathan Taylor, we're going to save him for the second half, which I thought was interesting. So we'll see what happens. But let's go with White for your floor and Taylor for your ceiling, depending on what you need for your team.
Yep, that's where I'm at. I really like Taylor. I think he's going to get a lot of work today, especially, I think both can get 15 carries at the very least. It's what they do with them. I think Taylor, has certainly the potential to just break one off. And then, after seeing CEH on Thursday, he could be certainly motivated to, hey, there's another good rookie running back in town here. So, all right. So next one, Boston Scott or Antonio Gibson?
Boston Scott. I just know what his role is. It's defined. Gibson, we're still waiting to see. And I would rather run against the Washington defensive line than the Eagles defensive line. Washington has a great defensive line, but the Eagles, at least at this point in the season before the games have started, have probably a greater defensive line, at least in my head.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd roll Boston Scott there too. I don't think that's at least too much of a decision here in week 1. Week 2, could flip on its ear. Stephon Diggs or Raheem Mostert?
I'm going to go with Raheem. Obviously,
I don't know why I asked you that.
Yeah, well, I'm always going to lean running back over wide receiver. I'm going to lean the best, if not top 3 running games in the NFL versus Allen. And we're still trying to figure out what's going to happen with Diggs. I will keep saying it. Lots of only 14 padded practices. That's not a lot of time to get on the same page as your quarterback who's already had accuracy issues. I'm just waiting to see when Diggs is going to blow up because he's going to be pissed off. He's not getting the targets and all that stuff like he did last year. But Mostert, I'm going to start Mostert almost every week that I can, unless it's just a matchup I can't fade. Or I have to fade, sorry.
I hear you. So I got to pick 2 here. This is all PPR too. And this is a curious trio because it's all from the same game. Chris Carson, Todd Gurley, DK Metcalf.
Starting 1?
Yeah, it's a good draft. Oh, no, pick 2.
Yeah. Pick 2. Okay. Doing the let's see. Carson probably. And man, it's like you have Gurley. Do you just do him for the 1 week because at least he's healthy now? I'm probably fading Gurley and I'm going DK and I'm going to go with Carson. Gurley was limping as recently as 2 weeks ago. I don't know how comfortable I am with that. I'm happy I was to wait and see. And if he comes out unscathed and they give him the workload, then hey, let's do it. But I don't know. I trust that Carson is their guy, and I trust that DK at worst is 1B in that offense. And hey, if they let Russ cook, Carson could get some touchdowns and DK could get lots of yards and touchdowns.
Yep, I'm with you. I have both the Seahawks guys there too. I maybe I want them to let Russ cook. Man, are we going to see it?
I think so. I think it's going to happen. I just don't know if it's going to happen this game.
Man,
I think
it's a spot to do it. If he's going to cook, if he's going to get that griddle out, do it this week.
Yeah.
So we're going a couple quarterbacks here. Joe Burrow.
Actually.
Go.
It looks like Lane Johnson is not going to play, and we thought that Lane Johnson was going to push through it. I want to know if that changes. We've obviously talked a lot about Boston Scott. Is that going to change anything for you if Lane Johnson is out? Plus, we know that Dillard's out and Brooks because they're both on IR. So now we're down 3 offensive linemen against that stout Washington front.
Yeah, it's something to consider. I might take Boston Scott down a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, he's not going to be really at the line of scrimmage a lot. I think he's going to get a lot of those swing dump offs too. Design screens that are going to help, relieve some of that offensive line. So yeah, it's certainly something to consider as far as, maybe the cap on when he does run the ball, but I'm not overly concerned. I'm worried about Carson Wentz more than Boston Scott with that.
Okay. That works for me.
All right. So Yeah. So Joe Burrow or Tyrod Taylor?
Whew, that is a good one. I'm just going to go with Tyrod just because Burrow, it's a rookie. You're going against Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, and a couple good cornerbacks. So, man, they're so lucky they don't have Derwin James. I mean, Burrow, the Chargers don't have Derwin James. Otherwise, they would just get destroyed. Tyrod, he runs a little. So does Burrow. If Mike Williams plays, maybe that helps just to give Keenan Allen a little bit less tough coverage, and Hunter Henry's there. Obviously, Austin Eckler, who looks like the most ripped man in the NFL. I'm going to go with Tyrod.
Okay. Couple. So we got a little bit of update here on inactives. Danny Amendola is active today. So I'm still on Marvin Jones. I still think Quintus Cephas could work his way in because he's not going to be playing inside. But Amendola may be somebody to consider. I just worry a little bit because it is a hamstring injury. I would still lean away from Amendola because, you might just get a little bit of, floor and then that's it. You're not really getting any ceiling with him. So that's what I think about that. And Kenny Galladay is inactive as we pretty much expected here. And then I'm looking here. Denzel Mims is out. Jeffrey out. Miles Sanders out. No surprises. Philip Dorsett for Seattle is inactive. Let me take a look here at others. David Montgomery is active. Cordell Patterson active. That's pretty much it as far as moderately relevant guys, at least in these 1 o'clock. That's filtered through so far. So just a couple updates there. Go ahead.
I just got to jump in. I just got a question on Facebook, and it's more higher level question. And so Lori's league just added PPR, and she's wondering if it makes sense to play another running back as a flex rather than a wide receiver. It definitely can make sense to put a running back in your flex in a PPR league. You usually want to have someone that you can look and see they're going to get, 3 or 4 targets a game because those extra couple catches, every catch, if you think of it, is going to be 10 yards of rushing. And so if you can add 2 or 3 catches, if not more, to a running back's game, obviously all of a sudden they're going to be getting potentially an extra 5 points each week, and that's going to make a big difference. So I definitely would consider a running back. If you have a wide receiver that is going to get peppered with lots of targets, and you can look at these things. I look at like Pro Football Reference. If you just Google the player's name, then usually the top link tends to be Pro Football Reference. You can find targets, or even put the player's name and targets in your Google bar. And you can search for that. So it really depends player to player. If you have specific people, you're welcome just to shoot me a DM on Facebook, Twitter, and you can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let's stay with some of these questions from our, the great people that sent them to us. So John Brown or Sterling Shepard? Again, PPR.
I'm going to go with Sterling Shepard because I don't think that the Bills are going to have to throw as much. Honestly, I think that they're probably pretty close to equal when you take into account that the Steelers defense, who Sterling Shepard are playing, are awesome, but they're going to be in a hole, and Daniel Jones doesn't care. He'll throw anywhere. He's like a young Fitzpatrick, but better. And so, we'll see. We'll see there, but I would probably be going Sterling Shepard.
Right. And one more piece of news here. It came out earlier, but I didn't mention it. All players and coaches passed COVID-19 tests ahead of week 1. So, I mean, considering what could have happened as far as COVID, it's the season's obviously young and hasn't kicked off yet, but it's certainly a good sign for week 1.
Definitely. It'll be, as I keep saying, it's fine when you're all been in training camp in your like small little bubbles. It's going to be crazy once they start traveling across country. So we'll see what happens, in a week or two. But for now, that is amazing news.
Yep. Fantastic. And, certainly don't blame any of you. We try to do what we can as far as like commissioners for adding roster spots and IR COVID spots to prepare for the worst, because that's really what you want to do, is have at least some contingencies should something happen. So certainly really good news across the league here. Let's get back at some questions here. This is going to be a loaded one here. Deshaun Jackson or Marvin Jones?
It's Deshaun Jackson for me. He's
Start them both,
so
man.
hard.
I wish
Yeah,
you could.
figure out how to put them both in. I mean, if Marvin's going to be the number one for this week for that team, like I absolutely love them both. I would not. I would be so pissed if I had to have both of them on my bench, not in my starting roster. So do everything you can.
Yeah, that's tough. Try to start both, but you got Deshaun there though between those two.
I think so, solely because we saw him scorch them last season in the opener with all the other stuff that's going on. I do think I like him more. Man, I don't know. Flip a coin.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if I'm looking at, I've got Marvin Jones over Deshaun Jackson. I don't think there's a bad play there. I think both are going to be awesome today. Maybe I would say Marvin toward more of a floor with, just bulking up in PPR. But Deshaun Jackson's got that big play. He's probably due for one of those at least.
And
go ahead.
I will tilt that. You're making a good case. I will tilt it towards Marvin. He's more guaranteed.
All right. One more question in the chat here. Drew Lock or Trubisky for a QB2? You already know my answer. It's Mitch Trubisky.
I'm going to go Trubisky also.
I mean, look what he's done against Detroit. I never thought I'd say I'm excited to watch a Bears quarterback like Mitch Trubisky, but here we are. It's COVID's messing with our minds, man. I never thought I'd be this in on Mitchell Trubisky in any week, much less week one, where you should have a quarterback locked up.
I'm going to throw in a question here. So also from Lori, Higbee or Cook? I know this is PPR, so I'm going to go with Higbee. I think he has a higher floor and higher ceiling. I think that Cook, we'll see what happens. You're just hoping that he breaks one away.
Same Higbee. I think it's gonna be a score fest. I think tonight between Dallas and the Rams. I think that's gonna be a fun game to watch. Devontae Parker or Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd has a really tough matchup today. Should see Chris Harris of the Chargers, not of the Broncos anymore, in the slot. So I think a lot of what we're talking about with Joe Burrow and how, people have got him ranked pretty low. I mean, you're looking at a Chargers team that has, two great pass rushers plus a trio of corners that can lock up any receiver in the NFL. I think it's going to make life tough for Burrow today. But Boyd or Parker, who should see Stephon Gilmore. It's two tough matchups.
I'm going to go with Boyd. AJ Green, he's healthy, but how healthy is he? He hasn't really been playing that much. So I'm just going to go with Boyd I think that Parker and Boyd are probably pretty close to each other. I'm always just going to default to, I don't want to go against Stephon Gilmore.
Right. I hear you, but hey, I will just say, as a feather in his cap, he did have a good game last year against Stephon Gilmore. I think he was the only person to get over 100 yards on Gilmore. I think he was like 8 for 113, something like that. So one more in the chat here. Let's go to this: OJ Howard or Dallas Goedert for a tight end 2. I'm going OJ Howard.
I'm going Dallas Goedert. I want to know that the guy's going to be on the field, and I think Goddard's going to be on the field. I don't know that Howard is.
Yeah, that's fair, because I kind of foresee that Tampa tight end situation is Gronk is going to be kind of a tell on passing downs or a red zone. I think OJ Howard's going to be at least on the field more. Maybe he's blocking a little bit more, but I think he's going to have a little bit more opportunity than people realize. Gronk is the shiny new toy, like we were talking about. And they want to use him, but I don't think he's going to be on the field every down. So I think OJ Howard's going to get a little bit more run in that offense, and who knows, he could see a little bit of more red zone work too. We'll see, but I'll take OJ Howard at least here because of the fact that the Eagles, I think, will be keeping Goddard into block more here. Yeah. So again, thank you for those questions. We've got a lot more though.
Let's do some rapid fire because we got 5 minutes left.
Yeah, we do. That's right. It's almost noon here on the East Coast. Rodgers or Trubisky?
Rodgers.
Anthony Miller, Brian Edwards?
Anthony Miller, but even though my heart says I want to go with Brian Edwards.
Yeah, I'd go Trubisky, and then with that previous one, I'd go Miller too. Hawkinson or Ingram?
Oh, Evan Ingram? Oh,
Yeah.
Evan Ingram. Maybe I think he's a top 5 tight end.
You don't like Hawkinson today? I think I like Hawkinson a little bit more than Ingram, honestly.
I don't know that Hawkinson is going to get targets. I know that Ingram will. Ingram is like the most targeted tight end when he's on the field.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think both are back. I think both are back to
Yeah, they're
back.
good options.
Both are good options. Odell Beckham or Michael Gallup?
Odell, just because I know he's the number one.
Not the number 2.
He's not. I don't think he's number 2.
Come on, that's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, I know that other people like Gallup more, but I would rather have a 50-50 shot than a 33% shot. That I'm going to guess right. And Odell, it's probably 50-50 with Gallup. He's still going against Cooper and Lamb for targets.
I tried to make a bad joke and it just went right by Gary.
I don't know.
He just ignored it. Don't Google his Odell Beckham's proclivities. Let's just say that.
Oh, I did not know. I actually have no idea what you're talking about. So
yeah,
I will Google it later.
Yeah, do it while the missus is not around. Yeah. Tyrod or Gardner Minshew from Bob Gilchrist?
Gardner Minshew. I actually think he's going to do pretty well. He's probably like QB like 16 to 18 this week.
Yeah. I like both. I both pretty close together. I'd probably go Minshew. I think we're going to see a little bit more 2015 Jaguars here. In 2020 with Chark and Minshew. Let's keep it going to rapid fire defense question. Eagles or Chargers?
Eagles.
Yeah, that's pretty safe for me. Let's see what else we got here. Terry McLaurin, Marvin Jones.
McLaurin, yeah. McLaurin could be that ascendant wide receiver that at the end of the season we're like, how did we let him slip to the 5th round?
Any worry about Darius Slay?
No, because I forgot about him till right now and almost said because their secondary is garbage.
The best way to be is to be completely oblivious.
Will Slay shadow? We don't really know. We haven't seen a true corner in Philadelphia for a while. I wish Brian Drake was here. If he shadows, that's going to suck. But yeah, I'm probably just going to go with McLaurin for the upside.
Yeah, I'm taking McLaurin too. I've got so much invested in Terry McLaurin across a lot of my leagues. Boston Scott or Keenan Allen in the flex standard?
I'm going Keenan. I'm not going to mess around with a banged up offensive line when I know that I have a borderline stud in Keenan Allen. Dude, I mean, Hard Knocks, man. Like, talk about Hard Knocks bump. Keenan Allen was the Hard Knocks bump this year. Dude looks legit.
I love it. Let's take a look here. Darius Slayton, CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb, I want to see what happens. Let's go for the explosion.
That's what she said. Daniel Jones, Joe Burrow. Both tough matchups.
Daniel Jones, because I think it's more likely he will maybe have a couple picks, but he could have a few touchdowns.
All right, let's see what else we had. Tight end premium, Hayden Hurst or Tyler Lockett?
God, man,
that was tough for me. That was honest to God, that's probably the toughest question. That made me pause a little bit.
I'm assuming it's probably like a 1 to 1.5, in which
it's
case
1.5.
Okay, I'm very high on Lockett. So if it is just a 0.5 bump, I'm going with Lockett.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. God, I'd probably go Tyler Lockett too. Because tight end premium. I love Hurst. I think Hurst is going to be awesome this year. Man, I want to be just wrapped up in that blanket, nice and safe with Tyler Lockett. So, do a couple more here, and then we'll be on our way. Chubb or Mark Ingram?
Chubb or Mark Ingram? God, that's super tough. Probably Ingram. I just feel like he's safer, but yeah. And then I want to get this question that's in the chat real quick since we just talked about Hurst. But I'm going to go with Ingram. I'm a little reluctant, but I like them both, Chubb and Ingram.
I hear you. Ebron or Hurst for tight end one?
I'm going to go with Hurst. I wanted this brought up. Do not take Hurst out of your lineup. Assume until proven otherwise, Hurst is matchup proof. We saw it with Hooper. We have seen it time and time again there. Hurst is going to be awesome. I love him. Ebron, though, it's hard to trade tight ends, but Ebron is going to have a better season than people think, but it's going to come on the back of touchdowns, just like Ebron has done in the past.
Yep. And then one more question here. Julian Edelman or Devontae Parker? I would assume PPR.
Yeah. Edelman, both floor and ceiling.
Yeah, I like it. I like Edelman there. So, we're at literally at the 1 hour mark right now. So, we have 1 hour to kick off, everybody. So if you still have questions, bring them to either myself or Gary. We'll be sure to answer them, either in DMs or just tweet at us at KTompkinsII, at Gary Haddow 1. Also, send them to Fighting Chance Fantasy as well. It's at FC Fantasy Sports. Send all your questions there. We'll be happy to answer them. We will be here every Sunday from 10 to 11 Central. That's 11 to 12 Eastern. Doing this same thing, and we'll iron it out. And we will be back next Sunday with Fighting Chance Kickoff. Be sure to check out Fighting Chance Live as well. Yeah. We are on every Wednesday. We'll go through what happened in week 1, as well as a look ahead to week 2 with Ryan Hallam from Fantasy Alarm. So that should be really fun, Gary.
Yeah, and in case he's still in here, let's go this week 1. I'm excited. Bryce Love is inactive. That's a huge bump for Anthony Gibson. So we won't rehash it, but I'm shocked Bryce Love's inactive. Damn it.
Yeah, that's definitely something for Gibson. So that's gonna give me a little bit of something to think about. But bring your questions out to us. We'll answer them. Thanks for joining us, and go whoever you're rooting for. Thank you for checking us out.